The night was drenched in rain as Michael stood frozen under the dim streetlight, staring at the screen on his phone. His heart pounded when he saw the article, his invention displayed as if it had never been his. Richard had stolen it all. The betrayal was raw, suffocating, and each drop of rain felt like a nail driven deeper into his skin. Michael whispered, "He took my life's work and left me with nothing." His words trembled, echoing into the emptiness of the street. His fingers curled into fists, nails cutting into his palms as anger consumed him. Memories of trust shattered before his eyes. Late nights in the lab, laughter that once seemed genuine, promises now poisoned. Every second burned with realization. He had been naive, blind to the mask Richard wore. Michael's chest heaved as he muttered, "I trusted him like a brother." The rain blurred his vision, mixing with tears he didn't want to admit. The city's noise drowned into silence. Only betrayal remained. He knew at that moment revenge was no longer a choice. It was his destiny. Michael sat inside his dim apartment, the room cluttered with unpaid bills and broken memories. Shadows crept across the walls, his face pale in the glow of his desk lamp. He whispered, "He thinks I'm powerless." Rage boiled beneath the calm exterior, his hand pressing against the photo of their old partnership. The betrayal replayed like a broken record. He had once called Richard a brother, but now the name burned his tongue like poison. He closed his eyes, hearing echoes of shared dreams turned into ashes. His chest rose sharply, torn between despair and defiance. Michael said, "If he wants war, he'll have it." His voice shook, but his determination had taken root. The night outside stretched endlessly, a mirror of his hollowed heart. Michael stared at the cracked mirror in his bathroom, the reflection staring back like a stranger. He muttered, "You let him take everything." His breath fogged the glass as his hands pressed against the sink. The weight of betrayal bent his shoulders, yet inside a spark was building. His reflection's fractured lines mirrored his broken trust. He whispered, "But you're not done." His voice rose with conviction, echoing off the tiles. The silence swallowed his words, but his heart hammered like a drum. His eyes glistened, no longer just with pain, but with the fire of vengeance that had begun to awaken. Michael wandered through the empty lab that once belonged to him. Dust settled on unused machines, and silence mocked him louder than words. He whispered, "This was my dream." His voice cracked as he touched the cold steel of a forgotten prototype. Richard's laughter haunted the room, echoing through the walls as if mocking him still. Michael clenched his jaw, gripping a wrench as his body trembled. His world had been stolen, piece by piece. He vowed, "I'll make him pay." His reflection in the glass cabinet looked back with hardened determination. The betrayal had forged not weakness but steel. Michael sat by his window, watching the city lights flicker in the rain. Cars passed below, their trails glowing like veins of fire in the night. He whispered, "He thinks he'll disappear into silence." The words burned his throat. His reflection in the glass looked older, heavier, scarred by betrayal. His chest rose with a final breath before he muttered, "But I'm still here." Each syllable carved a promise into the storm outside. The night did not answer, but Michael knew. He was no longer just the victim. He was the storm gathering strength in silence, ready to break. Michael dragged himself through the morning haze, his apartment suffocating with silence. His reflection in the window stared back, a man hollowed out by betrayal. The city outside hummed with life, but to him it sounded like mockery. He whispered, "He parades as a genius while I rot." His jaw clenched as he scanned the news on his laptop, Richard smiling at a press conference. Rage coursed through Michael's veins, his chest heaving with every forced breath. His hands shook as he closed the screen. A sense of helplessness lingered like poison. Still, beneath the despair, a spark of defiance burned quietly. Michael muttered, "Hell choke on his lies soon." The words felt fragile, but the seed of resolve was taking root. The television blared in the background as Richard's voice filled the room. Michael leaned forward, fists tight, his eyes fixed on the man who had destroyed him. Richard smiled confidently at reporters, dressed in his polished suit, basking in stolen glory. Michael whispered, "He rehearses my words." Each sentence was venom, twisting in his chest. He could almost hear the echoes of their late-night conversations now corrupted by lies. The betrayal dug deeper with every grin on Richard's face. Michael's nails cut into his palms until blood threatened to rise. He muttered, "Keep smiling, Richard. One day you'll choke on it." His chest rose and fell in furious rhythm, the silence between breaths screaming louder than the TV. Michael sat in the corner of a small cafe, his hands wrapped tightly around a chipped mug. He scanned the headlines on his phone, each article dripping with Richard's false brilliance. Conversations around him blurred into static. He whispered, "They all believe his lies." The weight pressed against his chest, suffocating. Across the table, Sarah, his longtime friend, leaned forward with worried eyes. She said, "You can't keep drowning in this." Michael shook his head, muttering, "I lost everything." His voice cracked like glass. Sarah reached across, her hand brushing his. She whispered, "Then fight for it." His gaze lifted slowly, and for the first time he felt the ember of possibility stir within him. Later that evening, Michael returned to the lab's locked doors. His keycard no longer worked, the machine denying him entry. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass, memories rushing like daggers. Inside, Richard's staff moved confidently, laughing as they prepared for tomorrow's demonstration. Michael's lips trembled as he whispered, "That's mine." Rage clawed at his chest, but he pulled back, forcing himself to breathe. His reflection in the glass looked like a ghost haunting his own past. He whispered again, "You can steal my name but not my fight." His voice cracked, but the words carried a strange calm. It was no longer about mourning, it was about reclaiming. Michael sat on the rooftop of his apartment, staring at the city skyline glowing under the night. The wind howled around him, tugging at his coat. He whispered, "He thinks I'm broken." His voice was calm but firm. He leaned back, the stars hidden behind clouds, the skyline mocking him with neon brilliance. He remembered Sarah's words, echoing softly, "Then fight for it." His fists clenched against the gravel as he muttered, "I'll fight." The words carried weight this time. He rose slowly, staring out at the vast city where Richard basked in glory. Michael knew it would not be easy. But revenge wasn't about ease, it was about justice. Michael moved through the crowded city streets, the noise of life buzzing around him as though mocking his silence. Neon signs flickered above, and he muttered, "He thinks he won." His eyes scanned faces passing by, each step heavy with purpose. The weight of betrayal pressed against his chest, but fire burned beneath his calm surface. Richard's image haunted every screen, his voice echoing in advertisements and news tickers. Michael whispered, "Your empire is built on lies." A chill swept through him as he realized Richard was more powerful than ever, yet cracks could still be broken open. He walked past an alley, shadows shifting, danger close. His instincts whispered, "I'm being watched." His heart tightened, but his jaw remained firm. Michael ducked into the alley, the hum of the city fading behind him. His footsteps echoed off brick walls, and shadows loomed larger than life. Suddenly, a figure stepped forward, broad, imposing, silent. The enforcer's eyes locked on him, unblinking. Michael's stomach twisted, but he held his ground. He muttered, "So Richard sent you." The man said nothing, his silence more threatening than words. Michael felt the weight of the trap closing, but his mind sharpened. The enforcer shifted, knuckles cracking. Michael whispered, "You'll have to do better." The tension was a wire pulled tight, one spark away from breaking. The confrontation lingered in silence, the air suffocating with unspoken menace. Michael's pulse roared in his ears as the enforcer stepped closer, boots heavy on wet concrete. Michael whispered, I don't scare easily. The enforcer smirked faintly, his body language a silent promise of violence. For a moment, Michael saw himself reflected in those cold eyes, loyalty twisted into servitude. The enforcer said nothing, but his presence was enough. Michael took a slow step back, calculating his options. His chest tightened, but his thoughts grew sharper. He muttered, "Every empire falls." The night swallowed his words, leaving only the sound of rain tapping metal pipes. Michael stumbled back into the open street, breath sharp, heart hammering like a drum. He whispered, "He's tightening the leash." The realization stung. Richard had eyes everywhere. His gaze lifted toward the skyscrapers towering above, their lights glittering like false promises. Richard's face shone from a billboard, smiling as though mocking him personally. Michael muttered, "You're not untouchable." The crowd bustled around, indifferent to his turmoil, the world blind to the truth. He pressed his hands into his pockets, shoulders squared. Though shaken, he carried a silent vow, etched deeper now. He knew Richard would escalate, but so would he. Later that night, Michael sat in a dim diner, hands wrapped around a steaming mug. The bell above the door jingled as Sarah slid into the seat opposite him, her eyes full of worry. She whispered, "You look like hell." Michael gave a bitter smirk, muttering, "He's sending dogs now." Sarah leaned closer, voice steady. "Then you need allies." He shook his head, jaw tight. "I can't trust anyone." Her hand pressed his, firm, grounding him. "You trust me," she said softly. Silence stretched between them, heavy but honest. Michael whispered, "I can't do this alone." For the first time he admitted the truth aloud. Michael stood in the diner's corner booth, staring at scribbled notes spread across the table. His hands trembled slightly as he traced the names, places, and dates he had gathered. Sarah said softly, "You're mapping a war." He didn't look up, his jaw set. "That's exactly what this is," he muttered. The sting of betrayal weighed heavy, but resolve cut sharper. He knew Richard's empire was layered in secrets, guarded by allies who would fall one by one. He muttered, "I'll dismantle him piece by piece." The night outside blurred with streaks of red and gold neon, a city alive yet indifferent. Sarah's eyes studied him, her voice filled with fear. "You can't do this without losing yourself." Michael finally looked at her, his expression firm. "I've already lost everything. Now I'm taking it back." The words carried steel, etched with defiance. Michael walked through an abandoned warehouse, each step echoing like ghosts of forgotten battles. The space smelled of rust and damp concrete. He whispered, "This will do." His eyes scanned broken beams, shattered glass, and scattered tools left to rot. It was a graveyard, yet in his mind, it became a war room. Sarah followed reluctantly, arms crossed. "This place feels cursed," she said quietly. Michael smirked faintly. "So do I." He stood at the center, stretching his arms as though claiming it. For the first time since his downfall, he felt ownership, however broken. The emptiness carried promise, a place to rebuild his fight. He muttered, "Here, he won't see me coming." Sarah shook her head, torn between fear and reluctant belief. Michael sat cross-legged on the dusty floor, sketching designs across old blueprints he had salvaged. His hands moved quickly, fire fueling his strokes. Sarah knelt beside him, watching in silence. He whispered, "I'll rebuild what he stole." His eyes shone with grim passion, jaw tight with fury. Sarah placed a hand on his arm gently. "And when he comes for you," he looked at her, voice steady, "then he'll find him not the man he remembers." The blueprints grew crowded with diagrams and notes, arrows pointing toward vengeance. Sarah frowned, torn between fear and admiration. For Michael, this was no longer a project, it was survival carved into lines of ink. He whispered, "I'll make him choke on every lie." The warehouse filled slowly with old machines. Michael scavenged, sparks flying as he worked through the night. His face was smeared with grease, his eyes blazing with a dangerous clarity. Sarah whispered, "You're building weapons." He didn't answer. The hum of machines filling the silence. He muttered, "Tools for justice." His voice cracked but held firm. The hours slipped away as metal clanged and sparks fell like fire. Michael's body ached, but every strike forged his resolve stronger. His heart no longer carried only grief, it carried rage sharpened into purpose. He whispered, "Every empire has cracks. I'll break his wide open." Sarah's silence was heavy, her expression torn, but she did not leave. Michael sat against a beam, exhaustion pulling at every muscle, blueprints spread across his lap. Sarah crouched nearby, her voice trembling. "You're not the same man." He looked up, eyes hollow yet burning. "No," he said softly, "I'm not." He tilted his head back, staring into the cracked ceiling, hearing echoes of Richard's voice mocking him. His fists clenched against his knees. He whispered, "He'll never see me crawl again." Sarah touched his shoulder lightly, but he didn't turn. For Michael, the war was no longer looming. It had begun. He closed his eyes, allowing exhaustion to wrap around him. His final whisper was sharp as glass. "Tomorrow, I strike first." Michael moved through the shadows, watching Richard's gala unfold from across the street. Laughter spilled from the grand hall, the very stage built on his stolen dreams. His jaw clenched. He muttered, "Dressed in gold, dripping in lies." Sarah whispered at his side, "This is reckless." He shook his head, his eyes never leaving Richard's figure in the crowd. "It's necessary." The music inside rang hollow, an orchestra celebrating betrayal. Michael's chest tightened, but his fury steadied him. He whispered, "He doesn't get to stand unchallenged." Sarah bit her lip, knowing nothing could pull him back now. The night pulsed with danger, Michael's shadow stretching long against the glowing glass doors. Michael slipped inside through the service entrance, the hum of music vibrating through the walls. His pulse thundered as he navigated narrow hallways lined with silver trays and rushing staff. He whispered, like a rat in his palace. The scent of perfume and expensive wine drifted toward him, a sickening reminder of Richard's stolen world. His hand brushed against the wrench hidden under his coat, his breath steady. "Every empire crumbles," he muttered, eyes sharp. Sarah's voice echoed in memory, warning of losing himself. He silenced it with the fire of vengeance. The hall grew louder as he approached the grand floor, his steps measured, a predator in enemy territory. The music swelled as Michael stepped onto the edge of the ballroom, hidden among shadows. Chandeliers glittered above, illuminating a sea of gowns and suits. At the center stood Richard, his smile wide, his glass raised in triumph. Michael's breath caught, rage clawing at his chest. He whispered, "Your moment ends tonight." The clink of glasses echoed, drowning his heartbeat. Richard's voice boomed, boasting of innovation he hadn't earned. Michael's hands curled into fists, knuckles whitening. "You'll pay," he muttered under his breath. Guests laughed, oblivious to the storm building on the fringe. His eyes never wavered, locked on the man who had stolen his soul. Richard's toast ended. Applause thundered, but Michael's eyes burned through the noise. Richard lowered his glass, glancing casually across the hall, his gaze brushing the shadows. For a heartbeat, Michael swore Richard saw him. His chest tightened, his breath stuck. Richard smirked faintly, turning back to his guests. Michael muttered, "He knows I'm here." The applause faded, replaced by the thud of Michael's pulse. The enforcers stepped into the room, scanning with predatory calm. Michael's body stiffened, eyes darting. He whispered, "He sent his hound." The moment stretched thin as glass, one wrong step away from shattering. Michael slipped back into the hallways, the enforcer's shadow close behind. His breath quickened, but his steps remained sharp and quiet. "This isn't the end," he whispered to himself, his mind racing with strategy. The echo of boots drew closer, relentless. He clenched the wrench in his pocket, his jaw locked. The hallway stretched endlessly, each turn a gamble. His heart pounded like drums of war. He muttered, "Let him chase." The sound of the gala grew distant, replaced by the raw tension of survival. In the cat-and-mouse silence, Michael's vow hardened. This was only the beginning. Michael crouched in the shadows of the corridor, his breath shallow, the enforcer's footsteps fading away. He pressed his back against the cold wall, heart thundering. His phone vibrated in his pocket. An unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A voice whispered, "You're not the only one he betrayed." Michael froze, eyes narrowing. The voice continued, "Richard stole from me too, and I know his secrets." Michael's grip tightened on the phone. "Who are you?" The voice chuckled darkly, "Call me a ghost. Meet me if you want the truth." The line went dead, leaving Michael trembling with both dread and hope. He muttered, "Another betrayal, or salvation." For the first time, Richard's invincible facade cracked in his mind. The war had just shifted. Michael sat in the warehouse, Sarah pacing nervously. He replayed the voice's words in his head like an echo refusing to fade. "Another victim," he whispered. Sarah stopped, arms folded, eyes sharp. It could be a trap. Michael shook his head, determination etching lines across his face. Or it could be the edge I need. The idea of Richard having more enemies stirred something inside him. For so long, he had felt alone in his war. Now, perhaps he wasn't. Sarah's voice softened. "If you walk into this, you might not walk out." He looked at her, eyes blazing. "Then I'll take him down with me." His voice cracked but held steel. Sarah lowered her gaze, silent but unwillingly supportive. The meeting place was an abandoned train yard, silent except for the wind whistling through rusted metal. Michael stepped cautiously across the gravel, his coat dragging in the cold. A figure emerged from the shadows, hood pulled low. The stranger whispered, "He stole more than just your work." Michael's jaw tightened. "Then tell me what you know." The stranger lifted his head, revealing scars across his face. "Richard left me to rot after he took everything I built. He'll do the same to anyone who trusts him." Michael's chest clenched with both anger and recognition. For the first time he saw his pain reflected in another. The stranger whispered, "Together we can tear him down." Michael gave a sharp nod, his voice low, "Then we start tonight." Back at the warehouse, Michael and the stranger laid out plans across the table. Sarah stood nearby, arms still folded, mistrust in her eyes. Michael pointed to Richard's schedule. "Tomorrow, he unveils his biggest project." The stranger muttered, "It's built on your foundation." Rage swelled inside Michael, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Then I'll destroy it in front of them all." Sarah's voice trembled, "You'll destroy yourself too." Michael looked at her with weary eyes. "If that's the cost, so be it." The room pulsed with the weight of his vow. The stranger's smirk twisted into determination. "Then we strike." Michael's heart thundered, knowing the moment of reckoning had arrived. The night before the unveiling, Michael stood alone on the rooftop, staring at the skyline. The city shimmered like gold-painted lies, Richard's empire glowing brighter than ever. Michael's hands trembled as he whispered, "Tomorrow, it ends." His reflection in the glass pane beside him showed a man unrecognizable, hardened, scarred, but unbroken. Memories of betrayal played like flames behind his eyes. Every loss, every tear, every scar led here. He clenched his fists, the weight of destiny pressing on his shoulders. For the first time, he felt both terrified and free. His lips curled into a bitter smile. "Tomorrow, I burn it all." The storm clouds above rumbled like an omen. The unveiling began in the grand hall, journalists flashing cameras as Richard basked in glory. Michael watched from the shadows, Sarah and the stranger at his side. Richard's voice boomed, "The future begins today." Michael's teeth clenched. "Built on my blood," he whispered. The crowd applauded, blind to the rot beneath the gold. Sarah touched his arm, her voice urgent, "This is your chance." Michael nodded slowly, his heart thundering in rhythm with the crowd's cheers. The stranger muttered, Time to end him. Michael's breath was steady now, his fear gone. All that remained was fire. He whispered, "Let the world see his lies crumble." Richard unveiled the prototype, sleek and gleaming beneath spotlights. The crowd gasped with awe, cameras capturing every angle. Michael's chest tightened, his creation twisted into Richard's monument. Rage surged as he whispered, "That's mine." The stranger smirked, not for long. Michael stepped forward, shoulders squared. Sarah hissed, "You'll expose yourself." He turned, his voice cold, "That's the point." The crowd's awe became a blur to him, only Richard and the machine existing in his vision. He whispered to himself, "I'll take back my name or burn with it." Michael's voice cut through the applause like a blade. "He's a thief." The crowd froze, turning toward the shadows. Richard's face paled, then twisted into fury. Michael stepped into the light, his voice shaking but strong. "That machine is mine. Every word he speaks is built on lies." Gasps filled the hall, journalists snapping frantically. Richard stammered, "He's delusional." Michael pointed to the design, rage igniting. "I built it, he stole it, and I'll prove it." The stranger shouted, "He's right!" Chaos erupted, the room splitting between belief and doubt. For the first time, Richard's empire trembled. The enforcer lunged toward Michael, chaos spiraling as guests screamed. Michael braced, fists clenched, but Sarah stepped forward, shouting, "Enough!" The room froze for a heartbeat. Her voice cracked but carried fire. "You all see the truth. He built this. Richard stole it." The crowd erupted in murmurs, doubt flooding the golden hall. Richard's smirk faltered, his mask slipping. Michael met the enforcer's eyes, whispering, "Not tonight." The enforcer hesitated, torn by the weight of exposed lies. Michael's chest rose sharply, relief and fury colliding. For the first time, Richard looked small, his kingdom trembling under the weight of truth. The hall descended into chaos, but Michael's voice rose above the noise. "This ends tonight." His gaze locked on Richard, who stumbled backward, pale with rage. For a brief moment, silence pierced the room, and Michael whispered, "You'll never steal from me again." His words cut sharper than steel. Richard's empire shattered not with fire but with truth. The journalists swarmed, flashes blinding, voices demanding answers. Richard's face twisted as he shouted, but his words drowned under the storm. Michael turned away, his shoulders heavy yet unbroken. He whispered to himself, "Justice is mine." As he stepped into the shadows, the storm outside roared, sealing his vow with thunder.